Welcome back. This is Teresa Adams with the Community College of Denver, and this is our last video on the sum and difference of cosine. On this section of the videos, we are going to write each expression as a function of alpha alone. So I'm going to use the sum of cosines to rewrite this first one. So I have the cosine of pi over 2 cosine of alpha minus the sine of pi over 2, the sine of alpha. And as I take a look at this, I know the cosine of pi over 2 happens to be 0. So this whole term goes to 0. And then the sine of pi over 2 happens to be 1. And so I end up with just the negative that's in front, sine of alpha. As I take a look at my next one, I have the cosine of alpha minus 180. So I know this is the difference of cosine. I have the cosine of alpha, the cosine of 180 degrees, plus the sine of alpha, the sine of 180 degrees. And just like on that last example, the sine of 180 degrees is 0, so this whole term goes to 0. The cosine of 180 degrees goes to -1, and so I end up with, as an answer, the negative cosine of alpha. On my last example here, I have the cosine of alpha minus 2 pi. So I'm going to have the cosine of alpha, the cosine of 2 pi, and it's going to become plus the sine of alpha, the sine of 2 pi. And just like before, we know that the sine of 2 pi happens to be 0, so this whole term goes to 0. The cosine of 2 pi goes to 1, and so I end up with just the cosine of alpha. And then that allows us to start thinking about verifying identities. So I'm going to do the first one here. I have the cosine of x minus pi over 2 equals the tangent of x, the cosine of x. I'm going to work with the left-hand side, but you could easily work with the right-hand side. So working with the left-hand side, I'm going to declare it left-hand side. And I have the cosine of x minus pi over 2. This becomes, from my example up above, I know that this cosine x, cosine pi over 2, plus the sine x, the sine pi over 2, is just going to simply become the sine x, which isn't the right-hand side. However, I can multiply it by 1. And in particular, the way I'm going to write 1 is I'm going to write as the cosine x over the cosine x, because that is 1. So when I do that, I have the sine x over cosine x times the cosine x, which means I have the tangent of x, the cosine of x, which is indeed the right-hand side. And as I look at my next two examples, once again the cosine of 2x, typically I like to work with the one that has the most terms. However, on this side, I would personally work with the left-hand side again. And the reason I'd work with the left-hand side is because I have the cosine of 2x is the same thing as x plus x, which means this is equal to the cosine x minus sine x, which happens to be the cosine squared x minus the sine squared x, which is the right-hand side. Now on this next one, I'm going to let you guys do. However, I do have a correction. This should be the cosine of negative y plus x. So please make that correction and go ahead and give that a go, and we'll go over any of these in class. Thank you for watching my videos on the sum and difference of cosine.